Perfect. Okay, namaskar everyone. I warmly welcome you all on behalf of the Keshav Suri Foundation for Queering the Pitch Live. Extraordinary situations require extraordinary measures. And in order to keep these conversations around equality, diversity, inclusion going, we are bringing conversations that will help build an inclusive world. This will enable us to embrace, empower, and mainstream each other. There is courage in creation and beauty in that courage. The foundation salutes each one of you who have used your art with honesty to bring forth narratives about the LGBTQ community. Our panel, Queering the Content, Representation and Revolution, discusses the importance of queer narratives and how they have evolved. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome our panelists, actors Arjun Mathur and Jim Sarbh, writer-director Onir,
hello,
activist and author Laxmi Narayan Tripathi ji, and our moderator for the session, Lisa Ray, who's an actor, activist, author herself. So I'll give the stage to Lisa and I'll see you guys on. Looking forward to a great conversation. Over to you, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Swati. And thank you everyone for joining us. We're discussing, very broadly speaking, a theme which is queering the content. And I kind of like it. It's kind of a provocative theme, isn't it? So I think that everybody who's here today has in their own way, beat their own path, and is definitely, I think, walking to the beat of their own drum. And what we wanted to really start out very broadly discussing is that, as we all know, it's no surprise that cinema, particularly in India, is sort of one of the most broadly consumed art forms. And in that, I think that representation really matters, what we present, not just today on the big screen, in web series, is really going to create an impact, or at least it'll create a very strong ripple effect across India. And I think that's something we can all agree on, although I'd sort of like to open it up, because obviously we're not really consuming mainstream Bollywood films right now. I think that a lot of the attention has gone onto streaming platforms. And what's your take on that, Jim? What do you think, especially during the strange period that we're living through, do you see that is now creating a much stronger impact than ever before in terms of people's perceptions and holding people's attention? So sorry, Jim. So like, just to add on to that, what do you see as being the impact? What is your perception about the impact? Say right now, like you said, we're mainly consuming web series. What do you think is the impact on people's psyche today?
Well, I guess it's a bit of a, beggars can't be choosers situation. You really can't go to the cinema and you can't have that collective experience in the same way. I do think a lot about the pandemic, however, is in general making people refocus and reprioritize or kill time, one of the two. So I think it's a good mix of like, reimagining what you actually want to watch, what you actually want to spend your day watching, or your evening watching, or different people have come up with different sort of like ways to deal with the pandemic by giving themselves things to do. You can only watch during these hours, and so it becomes what you actually curate for yourself. And then I think there's another group that is just bored and is basically watching everything. Like I went up to the roof a couple of days ago and there was a guy there that was like, just went through some 7-8 series straight in a row, being like, they're all superb. And they were of such varying styles and varying levels of quality that I was just like, oh, I see. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. And then he was like, are you in a web series? I was like, yes, actually, Made in Heaven. He's like, tonight. Gonna watch it. So I think
so we have a captive audience right now, basically, as well.
Good.
Yeah. So I mean, so let me also open it up into, into the larger theme, which is obviously queering the content and representation of the LGBTQI community also. Onir, what's your views on representation so far as of today in India? What do you see going on? And where do you see it going in the near future?
I feel that it's kind of a transitory phase right now, and it's not, I mean, too many people, we forget that, considering that we are the largest film industry in the world, that having one or two films come every year, it's not showing any change. And if you look at the content, we had Fire in 1997, which was bold,
Yeah.
provocative, in the theaters, ran for 5 weeks. So coming to 220, if you see the kind of films, it's not really that way moved ahead in terms of the discourse. Again, I feel that yes, with the digital platforms coming in, there is this avenue, because there is no censorship, so you can tell certain stories. But like television, similarly, now web platforms have started also looking at TRP, just like how production houses, everyone. And I've heard from, because I have been going to different platforms with queer content, and I've been hearing how they analyze their programs, and some of the most critically acclaimed series which had queer content, apparently the minute there would be the queer angle coming in, the viewership would drop. So they're rethinking. So it's too early to celebrate that, oh, now it's going to all open up, because everyone wants to play the TRP game. And as a society, to expect that suddenly that viewership will change overnight is, I mean, I don't know where that expectation comes, because it will take time to change. So I feel that there is all this happening, but at the same time, it's too early to say that everything, of course, there will be change, because society is changing a little bit, but there is much, much more work and representation needed, because right now, whatever we see is what the heteronormative world wants us to see.
Right.
It's not really telling our stories from our point of view, because you don't see out and proud people making the content. So our stories are being told by someone else, and that's not my story mostly.
I was sorry to interrupt, Lisa.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say that when I even heard about this panel, and I got the email with the final list of names, and I was like, me and Arjun again to talk about this thing? Oh man, like why isn't there a representative of the queer community as an actor? And then I started racking my brains to find a member of Bollywood that is openly queer, and there wasn't a single one. That is horrifying. That is, I just can't. I can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
No, exactly. And going back to what you said, also, Onir, I've had the opportunity to perform in 2 films before For More Shots Please, which is my most recent release, where I'm playing a lesbian character. And I've actually played lesbian characters in 2 films before this, but they were actually made by a gay couple. And so that was a very, very particular experience that today, looking back on it, I really relish. And also it was their way of seizing their own narrative, right? Like one was almost slightly autobiographical, and another one was based on content that this director, Shamim Sarif, had written herself. But, she's an out and proud gay woman, and she struggled with that. It wasn't easy for her, because she's from, she's based in the UK, but she's from an Indian Muslim family. And so she's got her own journey. But you're right, in India, we still don't have anything of that particular kind of flavor happening yet. But Laxmi ji, I wanted to ask you, have you been watching web series during the lockdown?
Of course, I really watched hell lot of web series, and you won't believe that I started my whole love because cinemas I feel really very boring. One of my favorite ones, yeah, watching a cinema which doesn't has anything in your context into reality, and you're fed up with the same type of storyline, and then you know the exact what will be the second scene, you know.
Correct.
So at least a series have created a sense of from last year I have been quite connected to series, and during this lockdown I finished both the series of Pose, you know, and for me Pose or any other, all the series have given a platform now. It has started at least to talk about, you know, LGBTIQ issues or characters into it. But at times the portrayal of the character in itself puts such a big question mark. Like if you see, whether it was queer behavior or whether it was a sexual behavior which was shown of same-sex behavior or whatever it is, the whole thing, even what Onir said, that it is a perspective from the heteronormative perspective which comes. It doesn't come from the community's perspective, you know. I don't know when the Bollywood or when the series people, the production houses will become, you know, that sensitive that they can make a series which is for India, like Pose, or like if anybody remembers, you know, one of those darling movies which I always say, my favorite of my favorite movies is Priscilla, the Queen of Desert. You know,
yes, I love that.
Yeah.
With Terence Stamp, he was fantastic in it.
Yes, can you imagine? In my childhood, I have seen Priscilla. In my 4th standard, I had seen, oh my God, one of my auntie. From there till now, we don't have a single picture which says that. Because now we see whichever platform, now it is a hard time. I rather believe now it is the time that rather people from the community have to see how they can be producers and how they can be a production house to at least produce their own stuff. But even after doing that also, there won't be a space for them, you know, because that perspective of accepting what is made by a queer people, it is also not so easily viable by the heteronormative, you know, community.
It's true.
Yes,
it's true.
I thought that's so well put, actually, Laxmi, also, that, you know, ultimately, because, you know, the power has to come from the decision makers. And, you know, once maybe the queer community openly as well, like openly queer individuals take control of the narrative, become, you know, directors, writers, producers, which maybe they are, but they're not open right now, and actually say we want to tell our stories.
There are camera people who are there from the community, but the problem in itself is with the entertainment industry. One thing for me becomes I really feel there is a lot of questions which comes, because when you look at a person, of course, you know this person is from the community and the person is not ready to accept it. Or if the person tries to even accept it, there is so much of stigma involved around. Why the stigma has to be involved?
So in that sense, right now where we are content-wise is reflecting also kind of still the uncertainty, the collective kind of conflict over embracing sexuality in India today, right? So Arjun, I wanted to ask you about of course, you are known for this very, very sensitive breakthrough, I would say, performance and portrayal in Made in Heaven. And so what went on in your mind, obviously, as a straight guy taking on this role? Because I think it really is, I can't recall too many other roles in the same genre that you took on. So what was your thought process behind accepting the role and then preparing for this role?
Well, actually, honestly, this was the 3rd time that I myself have played a queer character. The first time was in a short film back in 2007 with Meera Nair, in a short film she directed. The second time was actually with Onir in a film called I Am, and the film went on to win the national award. So for me, I mean, each time that I did it, it was, my motivations were different. Actually, the first time, honestly, it was really the very first film I was doing, and it was an opportunity to work with Meera Nair and Irfan Khan, and there were no questions, you know. So I did that, and I didn't think too much at the time about what kind of effect it would have on my career or any such thing. It was not even a thought. It is true that as soon as those short films were seen, I did kind of get immediately slightly slotted as this actor. Okay, he does like issue-based cinema, that kind of.
Which is a bad thing in India, right?
I've been so proud from the word go, to be honest. The second time was with Onir. There was hesitation again. There was like, okay, I felt that there was, but I think I personally did it to overcome my own barriers, and I did it particularly for that scene that had me getting intimate with a man, because it was just something that Arjun could not imagine doing. So I wanted to experience it as an actor, also I knew at the time, now, I mean, by which time I had kind of started seeing that, okay, Bollywood is not quite the place I had imagined. So I guess I'm going to have to do things differently, to make my own mark over here. So that's what it was over there. And with Made in Heaven, it was the third time that it came to me. And in my first meeting with Zoya and Rima, I kind of shared my apprehension, like, for the third time, really, I don't know, but they gave me all the episodes to read, and it took me one night to go through them, and I was just so blown away with the narrative that it had chosen to take, and with the way it was presenting this the queer man story, and it was, whatever any doubts that I had were gone there. And I thought to myself that, I may have done 2 films before this, but even now, if I'm drawing the line in my head, that if I'm still thinking, oh, this is a queer part, so I am thinking about it a little bit, as long as that thought crosses my mind, my support is empty, and so that's what I was really feeling really deeply, that this was an opportunity for me to really like put my money where my mouth is, and go all out screaming support for the community, really. Yeah,
that's awesome. So in the same way, so Jim, what I think, what even Arjun is talking about, and even what I also feel like, as an actor, a part is a part is a part, right? You don't always judge your characters from the outside, right? And sometimes you want to do something that's very far from your personal experience, because that's what we do. But for you, when you took on this character, like this gender neutral schemer in Padmavat, which you pulled off beautifully, did you also think about it like as a political statement? Because it is. That's one. And secondly, it's interesting because this is not a 21st century role or character. So how did you also then prepare for that? Did that come into your preparation at all?
Mimi, say hello.
Hi.
Okay. Political statement? No, I didn't think about it at all. I guess I come from a theatrical tradition where you try to find an actor for the role, and if you can find someone representative of the community, you go with them, and if you can't, you go with whoever's willing to take on the role, because the story is worth telling. I remember doing a play in Bombay called Cock a while ago, and it was audiences just loved it. It was representing a character that has identified as homosexual, and then he meets a woman and he realizes that he has feelings for this woman, and now he doesn't know what's going on with him, and he keeps and so the first act is the entire conversation with the man, the second act is the entire conversation with the new woman, and the third act is all three of them together for dinner, and they're kind of like fighting it out. And why did I bring that up? Right. So when Padmavat came and I read the script, and Padmavat has also got some feedback about certain elements that can be problematic, and I do agree with some of those elements. it's a bit tricky. I never thought of it as a political statement. I really thought of it as the more interesting side of the story, because Padmavat's side, they're so straitjacketed by their honor and like respectability that they really have no fun. They have no fun at all. While all of the fun in the script, just off reading it right off the bat, was on our side. So I was only excited. And I really loved researching the character and finding out more about him. And actually, Alauddin Khilji was the first ruler to unify the North. He threw away many archaic Islamic laws on the side of practicality and of actual needs of his people, and was a ruthless leader, yes, but was a very rewarded loyalty, extremely sensible and powerful leader. And Malik Kafur, his story is also very fascinating, because I mean, the way the film was organized, because it was Padmavat's story, not Malik Kafur's story. We saw Malik Kafur only in reference to Alauddin Khilji, because Alauddin Khilji was only shown in reference to Padmavat. So it was like a trickle-down effect in that way. However, the only way I can see it being a good representation is if it was from Malik Kafur's perspective. If it's not from Malik Kafur's perspective, then you're always only going to get, unfortunately, a very limited ideology and a limited representation to an extremely complicated character. Now, it wasn't Malik Kafur's movie, but in my opinion, the story there is just extremely fascinating, because Alauddin Khilji actually was absolutely besotted by this slave. And then you wonder, what love can there be between a master and a slave? What form does it take? How does it exist? And a good idea for the form that it took is to see how it all ended, which is Malik Kafur came back because Alauddin Khilji called him back and Malik Kafur used to go on these like pillaging raids down south. He actually brought the Kohinoor diamond back up to the capital. He would come back with this like immense booty from the south. And Alauddin was sick. He called him back. Malik Kafur poisoned him over a couple months, killed all of his sons, put a 4-year-old on the throne, married his youngest wife Chittai, and ruled through them all of northern India for quite a while.
Amazing.
Now, is this a complicated story? Indeed. What must Malik Kafur have experienced and gone through as the slave general to an extremely selfish, potential megalomaniac? So it's just extremely complicated. And the only way I think to truly represent the queer narrative side of it is for it to be from his perspective. So to me, if things are to change in commercial mainstream Bollywood, we need to have films that take on where the main character, your lead, is coming from, is part of the community, is part of the LGBTQI community. And so we're in their head and we see the world through their eyes, and they're not just a side character that the hero bounces off of in order to do other things. To me, I
completely agree. Yeah.
If things are meant to change, then that's how it has to change, behind the camera and in front of the camera. Again, we talk about in front of the camera a lot, but I feel like what Laxmi ji was saying, which is like we need that if you're telling that story, then there need to be people behind the camera as well that know the community, that know who to talk to within the community, to find out how to tell a story that members of the community can actually relate to.
Yeah.
And what is the...
No, exactly. Sorry,
Lisa,
go ahead, Laxmi ji. Yes.
Lisa, I want to even add that not only what the community wants to say, but the truthness, the truth of the story. As a basic thing at times, now also you see in many series and many places that, see today also, like we have gone through certain things, that there is one cliche only shown. One cliche, one type, like even Malik Kafur story, if you go to see, or the trans community in the Mughal era was so strong. There is not a single story told about that. Till even Bahadur Shah Zafar's last general, even he was a trans person. He was Khwaja Sarai.
Amazing.
And maximum of the land which was owned before the Britishers belonged to the trans community in the Delhi region. And there are many other stories, whether it is, you have the religious stories, whether you have of valor, you have of loyalty, you have all shades, you know.
You know what? Sorry, Lakshmi ji, I'm sorry, I don't want to jump in, but there was something, I just had this very strong thought. And because I want to actually discuss this with you as well and ask you some other questions. But for instance, I used to get, being a part of this Four More Shots Please and playing the role that I did, Samara Kapoor opposite Bani, the one bit of feedback that I constantly kept hearing as a positive from a general audience or, you know, a heterosexual audience was, oh, you've normalized the relationship. And on one hand, I used to think, oh, okay, that's good. We've normalized the relationship, means we've made it normal, like any relationship, because it is. But suddenly, as in the middle of this discussion, I'm thinking, why should we have to normalize a relationship? Why should we have to create these relationships or present them in a way that makes the audience feel comfortable? You know what I mean? Even that is a little bit of a, I don't know, it's kind of a double-edged sword, you know, to say, oh, well, it's okay because you've normalized a relationship. It's like a normal relationship, implying that, you know, that any, queer relationship is somehow not normal, which is not the case. And to add to your point, Lakshmi, it just strikes me that maybe we should just accept and celebrate the stories because the queer community has such a strong history in India. They've always, or the trans community has a strong history and contribution in India that we're not talking about. We're just keeping it in the shadows. It's not about normalizing, not normalizing. It just is. And what do you think about that? And I also want to ask you very quickly, of course, the trans community has always been marginalized. Oops, sorry, I'm hearing myself. That's weird. But I'm sorry. So Lakshmi ji, I wanted you maybe to add whatever your thoughts are to that, but also I wanted to ask about the trans community and how they're dealing with the pandemic right now, in your opinion.
See, very simple. Okay, now about normalizing, I don't understand what is normalizing. This is normal to me. And if my love life, love life is bloody colorful, so what can I do? You know, so if you have an unromantic life, so see, when I wrote my book, The Red Lipstick Men in My Life, so I wrote about everything. If you read that book, no, it is very interesting that how I had an affair even on the plane, to everything, and quote unquote, I had all so-called heterosexual men in my life. You know, all I had a flick with a trans man in past, and at present also my partner, whom we both are staying in Delhi. He's a trans man bodybuilder. He's India's one of the Asia's first trans man bodybuilder, and I'm a trans woman. So yes, Aryan Pasha and we both are staying together. You know, so for that also many people have a lot of eyebrows, you know, jumping up and down, you know, and everybody is interested, you know, what kind of relation people see. Our relations are colorful. We are maximum of us in the trans community, we are very open about us. Yeah, okay, fine, this is my story, you know. And during this whole pandemic time of COVID time, the whole issue happened with us was, see, people will not die of COVID, but people will die of hunger. So at least, you know, all over India, and even KSF and we all, many other organizations, we came together, we supplied food and dry rations to everywhere. But still there is a very bigger problem. Today, even a higher middle class people are facing so much of problem. Imagine people who are begging every day, who go to sex work every day. For them, living life is becoming a hell now. Because still the whole issue, safe, health-seeking behavior is not there with the community, because that's not the priority. The priority is of survival. Today over here, people are getting homeless because they don't have the money to pay rent. So we all are working on these all aspects. But in spite of everything, the stories are colorful. In spite of everything, the positivity to live life to the fullest is still there. Whatever situation we are put in, still I feel like a woman, still I feel like a mother, I feel like a wife, I feel like a child to my parents, or my sibling to my own brother and sister. These aspects will be never ever shown. That will be only shown ki taali baja rahe hain, hai na? Aur Raju kya kaisa hai? These all stuff. Why? Nowadays, even trans community, we don't do this, yaar. We find it so obvious that, and of course, and the worst thing with this creative world, no, they will make always a man, they will drag a man, and then they will portray a man into a transgender woman. Sorry, we spend so much of money and energy in looking like women, and still our portrayal is so manly. It just goes to bonkers, you know, and that it's really shameful for us. That creates such a kind of extra stigma. Yeah, but still we are living up with it.
But I'm thinking, well, you're a beautiful example of also advocating for the community and, you know, getting into politics and really, you know, stepping up. But what about adapting your book? Would you like to see that?
My book, yes. Many people have said that people want to make series out of it. You know, many things have been going on, but I will only trust a person only when the person has full conviction. The person will tell my story to the beautiful way, right to the small integrities of my childhood when I was abused. Those feelings comes out as what it is, not only just for the heck of doing, you know, another biopic or another a true story into this. No, I don't want that. I want, if anybody in future, whoever will make my life into a series or whatever it is, it has to give the 100% of what Laxmi, the glamorous way I lived my life. My life is like the rainbow, you know. I always say my life is a festival, and that festival has to come. Okay, there is the shades of, you know, black and white also, but still I have lived my life fully. Now I'm on the biggest position in religion also. Can you imagine a trans woman being the high priestess in India, and that to the Vedic Sanatan Dharma? Impossible, but I'm sitting on that position today. So this is all what is enjoyment. It's how you have played power, how you have used your position as an advocate to, you know, cut through those corridors of people where people didn't want to see you, where even the religion was also made patriarchal, where you were only considered as a sexual toy, and using that femininity, still, you know what I always say, I was available but not accessible. You know, using that whip in your hand of femininity and just crossing in, you know, walking on the ramp away towards achieving what you want to achieve. These things should come. It's not about being trans, it's not about being woman, it's not being about man. It's about that story of one human being.
Right.
It's about story of femininity. You know, that all has to come somewhere, you know.
I don't know.
And my two books are there, Lisa.
Yes.
My two books are there.
You've written two books, Hannah?
Yes. My first book is Me Hichra Me Laxmi. That is my autobiography that was published by Oxford University Press. And my second book is The Red Lipstick Men in My Life. That was published by Penguin Random House. The
Lovely. I need to pick it up. I will pick it up, Laxmi ji. I'm actually a big reader, much more than consuming content these days, but that's a different story. But Onir, my dear, you are an acknowledged, I think, pioneer, I think, in the field of LGBTQ representation on screen. 2005 was My Brother Nikhil. A beautiful, sensitive film, talking about sensitivity again, and talking about a way of portraying subject matter that scares a lot of people, that has a lot of misunderstandings around it. So, but that was 2005, and cut to now 2020. Where do you see progress, if any, and what would you like to see happen if you could just come out of this?
So
And
quickly
next year.
quickly before answering that, I would just like to add on to what Jim and Laxmi have been speaking. One is,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's even okay if there are 10 characters and one character is LGBTQI, because we live in a society with all kinds of character. As long as his existence in that, his or her or their existence in that film narrative makes sense and represented in a correct manner. Having
Yeah.
said that, at the same time, it's very, very important. Like, why are those narratives, like the entire narrative of Malik Kapoor, missing? Why would no one be telling those stories? If you
Yeah.
really look at history, the first ever transgender story of the world, okay, and it's a huge thing in India, is Shikhandi. Okay, which Shikhandi is the one because of whom the Pandavas won the Mahabharata. But we never, like, I've been like Devdutt. Devdutt is a very well-known writer. He's written about Shikhandi, and I've been trying to realize it. And and the minute you suggest anyone that let's tell the story of Shikhandi from Shikhandi's perspective, not from the other perspectives, there is a lack of interest. So there is, these stories are not being allowed to be told. I think, from 2005 to now, if I come to the scenario for LGBTQI narrative, what has changed is, of course, because of the Supreme Court verdict, now you cannot be stopped from showing certain things by the censor board in terms of cinema. And of course, with the digital platform you have. And with the Supreme Court verdict, there are much more out and proud people who want their stories to be told, who want to go out and watch those stories. But unfortunately, our industry, like, it's taken years and years and years to have the female narrative, right? To have women who are
which we're still
telling the
struggling
story.
with, of course,
Yeah.
frankly.
So in terms of the queer narrative, if you really like, if there are hardly any out and proud people in the industry, even behind the camera. So if we don't have these people, how are they going to tell the stories if you're not, one, proud about yourself? Two, very often people who are deciding what content goes out, be it in the platform, one, it's not that all of them are sensitized to the LGBTQI narrative, right? They themselves have to be, educated to be inclusive. Okay. Secondly, they're all thinking constantly is the TRP, and that won't change overnight. So it is still a struggle, because you'll see once in a while some, I think after Made in Heaven, I've not really seen that kind of representation anywhere. And also mostly representations are very much about the physicality of the characters. Somewhere I feel that the lives, the stories, that, there is so much more to our lives are, the queer gauge at looking at queer characters is somewhat absent. I mean, we need much more. I'll give another quick example. Like, everyone keeps, and I think Laxmi ji, I would like to know if she agrees with me, keeps on talking about super deluxe being this, but, firstly, it's almost like, as viewers, as members of the LGBTQI community, we have to be grateful that a big star is doing us a favor by portraying us or being a part of our narrative. Secondly, it has all the possible stereotypes. Firstly, of course, like Laxmi mentioned, this, really, physically a man dressed up as a woman, it's very obvious it's not, what Laxmi, the femininity was missing. And secondly, it's very problematic in the way it's portrayed about the equation with the woman at the end of it. So it's not, I mean, she just becomes a doormat for the trans woman, like another man, just passive, So I feel that all these things are problematic also because it's not the community telling our stories. The trans representation, I will not see empowered trans people. Today there are lawyers, the Congress spokesperson, she's trans. There's so many people, lawyers, doctors, empowered people. We don't see them. As Laxmi said, they're always on the street. I mean, of course, that's also one of the realities, but that's not the only reality. We need to see stories which are inspiring.
Yeah, completely agree. Well said. I have a couple of questions as well. Does someone want to add something?
Yeah. Hey, Onir. They did a play in Bombay called Shikandi, and it was really quite lovely. Have you got a chance to watch it? You watched it?
Yeah. I love the play.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
really
theater
nice.
always gives much more space because it accepts that, okay, we have a niche audience.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah, no. So we have a couple of questions as well. One of these is addressed to Laxmi ji, and it says,
forgive me, can I just add one quick thing that Onir made me think about while you were saying it? Because so after I found out that it was only me and Arjun, I called up some of my friends that are part of the community to find out what they would like to change or what they are interested in being different in Bollywood and whatnot. And a lot of them basically said that that they don't feel represented a lot of the time because one, there's no story to really root for. It's oftentimes it's a really complicated telling of something that ends in tragedy, which is a reality, yes. But consequently, it does not give you a character to be on their side for, that you root for, that you want them to succeed, and they do succeed, and the feelings that go through as a consequence there. Now they say they don't want to be sold dreams, false dreams either. So they also want you to go into the complexities of this, of what it means to be queer in India, because in India there's no sexual education and counseling and mental health awareness embedded into schools. So how can our society be open and accepting for something that they have no access to in any capacity, even though there's plenty of things around that should allow the access? And also a lot of them said that actually they don't have an outlet. They aren't extroverts, and they go to pride parades because it's a political statement and they must go to represent, but that's not what comes naturally to them. They say, we don't even do major activism. We just sit in the room and look at the wall and think all of these things that we're telling you. And we don't feel that story is represented at all, of like, not to, and they also made another point of like, everything is again come through the lens of patriarchy. So the first thing that we're accepting is two gay males, not non-gender conforming, not non-binary, not trans people, not the entire spectrum that exists. But again, we're approaching an issue that is about breaking down these stereotypes through a very male patriarchal gaze. And that's the thing that, though, these are the main points that have been stuck in my head since yesterday talking to everyone. Is
that's
that
amazing.
I totally agree. I think
I'm so glad you shared that. I'm so glad you shared that, because that's the essence of what we're trying to get at. When we're talking about representation, what does it mean? I can't necessarily speak to it. But you want to get to the core. But if I can just very quickly, also on the other side of it, what you said, Jim, also triggered me to say that, or what everyone has been saying, and it's about representation and seeing through the lens of these characters and these stories. And I have a story about, again, my friend that I've done these two lesbian centric films with. And as I said, so she's London based, but she's of Indian origin. And she also had the most difficult time ever trying to sell her films. And now they've kind of become cult films, these two films that I've been in, for sort of the, like the lesbian community all over the world. But she was sort of saying, well, it seems now she's watching the content happening in India, and she's come and she's done some post-production in India. And so she came here and kind of did some meetings and was talking to people, and, and so on the other side of it, just what we're talking about, part of it is the characterization, part of it is we need, say, somebody from the queer community directing these things. And she said she just had every single door, shut in her face. Despite the fact that she's been, very successful with the content that she's done. She definitely, she's very good at what she's done. She's done a lot of films that are not of queer content as well. But she says, I thought India had changed when I came here about 2 years ago. And she said, I thought that I want to be a part of it. Like, if you're telling stories about these characters very rightly, exactly what, to everyone's point, why can't I be a part of that? Why can I not also be a part of the change in order to push the change, push the envelope? So I'm sharing the perspective of a director, of a queer director. So as much as, like we're talking about out and proud actors, and again, people behind the scenes are also not getting, they're met with like a very, very cold reception.
It has to go mainstream, doesn't it? It really, unless like we have actors that are hungry for these parts, the ones in with some kind of mass following, unless unless you have the money backing it, unfortunately, it's really going to be it's going to be a tough fight. It's going to be through and through. But I think people just really have to get in there and tell their stories, however, at whatever scale they get to, because that's really the most important part, that the stories get made, because slowly over time, it'll slowly erode everything as it is. Just, things are just moving slowly here, but they are moving, I just finished, I mean, like I a little off topic, but I play a lot of video games, and I just finished this video game, which is like this blockbuster, and the video game industry is huge in making even more money than Hollywood, in fact. And they have actors performing in them. And I just finished this. You can call it the biggest video game of the year. And with the lead character is a lesbian. You're playing as a lesbian character. They have a trans character really well. Not tokenized in the game as well. It's a narrative, and the storytelling is moving forward really fast in terms of, at least abroad. It's just in India, it's going to take time, but we'll get there slowly,
Yeah, I don't know that it is moving ahead abroad, but there's obviously a bit of a, I don't know, what's the word, protectionist, right-wing backlash all over the world. So even we're seeing that obviously even in the States as well. Sorry, I just want to bring this up because somebody from the community is asking a question. It just says, being a part of the community and particularly being an extrovert, I have faced not only discrimination in multiple walks of life, be it my professional, my personal. Despite that, I'm ardent to this representation. However, this has played negatively to me. What would your take be on this, since this is something most people in the community go through, particularly the extroverts? So I think extroverts. So I think somebody from the community, Parth Singh, is saying that I'm actually very out and loud and proud, and I'm experiencing a backlash. And does anyone have any advice or something that they might want to share in that regard?
I feel that, there is nothing more rewarding than the fact, like I've been out, since I don't know when, and there have been backlashes, and, but I feel that the pride that one feels at not being, not hiding your identity, which is your base thing, is much more than the backlashes. I always look at it, I used to always tell myself that if someone is ridiculing me, he's a lesser human being. If someone is not accepting me, it's that person's loss. So I feel, one needs to constantly turn the narrative instead of being, I always I get called for this inclusion seminars, and then get paid for it. So the first thing I say is I feel superior because I was born and I accepted you. No one taught me how to accept you as a heterosexual. And now I not only accepted you without training, I then learned to accept myself because I was told that the only good thing is you around. And now I have to come and teach you how to accept me, which is such a simple thing.
My God, that's amazing. That's amazing.
So
That is amazing.
I
Snap.
mean, that's what I want to tell him, that I feel that you're beautiful and it doesn't matter if it's a problem with their gauge, not you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's unfortunate
That
that we're living in a time and atmosphere that is not very supportive of the marginalized in general. So yeah, it's unfortunate that that's the case. But what are you going to do? Just fight it.
So a couple of days back, what was trending on Twitter was they started because it was Pride Month, and it became a huge thing to be talked about. Is why so proud? That was the hashtag.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, mostly by one community, saying that you all were destroyed this many years ago. Da da da. And I remember replying back that why so proud? Because I'm not an idiot like you. I can celebrate diversity, inclusion, and love, and I don't nurture hatred. So I am proud.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that is what it's about. There was one more point that I thought I should also bring up, and that is something that Keshav and I have discussed. And I think it's called pink power or pink money, because also, so much in our world runs on the economics of it or on finance. And, I think to somebody's point, they were pointing out, I think it was you, Laxmi ji, that was pointing out that there's a lot of now powerful people in the trans community who are working as, in important institutions, whether it's lawyers or, bankers, et cetera. But, to also kind of expand on that theme, if the queer community in India actually put their money maybe and their viewing habits behind their beliefs and started pushing that agenda, whether it's in terms of supporting the content that they want to see, financing the content that they want to see, et cetera, I think that that's also where change comes. And that's unfortunately also how the entertainment world works, right?
Yeah.
It's also about money. As soon as something is successful, to your point, like Made in Heaven, or this season, like 4 more shots, please. They're going to say, okay, fine, we're gonna greenlight you for the next season, and let's put in a couple of more gay characters. It's like, they'll interpret it in their own kind of idiotic way, I'm afraid to say. But what do you guys think about that as sort of also a parting shot?
See, can I?
Yes, please.
Yeah, see, very simple. Now, if people may have the money also, but the whole thing of making how to run the business is also to be taught. I rather how one should be a producer, how one should, these integrities of things are also hardly lacking. That knowledge is lacking from. It has not been quite open there, to know. I rather believe that there should be workshop taken, by proper people who will make, how things are made, how at least these contents are made. And these things, if it comes, there are many people who are ready, See, for example, there are few of the transgender community people also I know who spent their hard-earned money into making their whatever content they wanted to make. But then they don't know the whole system, whole business of making. And then after making becomes easier. But after that, getting a platform to showcase becomes harder, So how to even tackle that those platforms which are there where you can portray your work has to be non-discriminative, there should be a proper system that they cannot discriminate you, that they cannot, if there is a space, they should assign a space for you all. So that has to also come, It is all
Yeah.
these things, Lisa, and everybody. But I really feel that it requires a proper training, proper channelization, proper hand holding to see to it that even after making this contents, or the contents are made very, professionally. People like Onir, people, all of you all are there, from the industry, who can really be very helpful in creating such kind of sensitivity.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that perspective, Lakshmi ji. I mean, at the same time, we're, I think, all grateful to be here courtesy of the Keshav Suri Foundation. So that's already sort of one great step forward, because, with people like Keshav, who are, strong advocates, who are also putting their money behind their beliefs, I think that, that we have to also acknowledge the positive steps that have been taken. I think because I've been in the industry for so long, since 1991, that I have seen such a huge evolution. I mean, some things have not changed, but a lot actually has in the course of that, and that the general trend is still towards the positive, is towards a better representation. I still think that even in the last, whatever it is, 2-3 years, the kind of roles that we've seen and characterizations of the LGBTQIA community, we have not seen in India before, or I can't recall. So at least there's something happening. I mean, there's also the question of like, it's representation, and it's just, this is who we are, take it or leave it, right? We're not trying to convince people of anything, or are we? Or is there an advocacy involved? Does anyone want to say something about that? And then I think we could go on, and I'll take a few questions and we might have to log off.
I just wanted to say that for me, it's just becoming more and more clear, something that I've always believed, which is people love characters. People love interesting people, and everybody can be interesting, charming, funny, fascinating, terrifying. It just depends on how they're written and what facets of their life that we see. The problem is that nobody has taken time to write those characters. They've always been throwaway characters, and consequently we feel they do not work, or there's no mass appeal, or etc., etc., etc. When the fact is, it's not that. It's about taking the care to write the character. An audience will love them. I don't even think twice about that. I don't worry about that at all. Write a fascinating character and the audience will love them. It just doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
All of the other stuff.
No,
around
that's so well
it.
put.
I mean,
I have one interesting
a
comment that I thought I'd share, and then we might have to wrap up. So someone is saying, I'm a gender fluid homosexual person, and I think the representation of LGBT.
We lost you. We lost you, Lisa.
Yeah.
Can't hear you, Lisa. Lisa, you've gone mute.
Indian states, and I'm publicly out about my sexuality. And I think I got more support from people after coming out than when I hadn't. Also, there's a lesbian couple living together for many years in a village in my district, and the villagers are supportive of their choice. So yes, I think filmmakers should really be looking outside of metro cities. So I think that's another interesting.
Yeah, we actually lost the first part of your of what you were saying. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Well, I mean, just to sort of sum it up, someone from the community is saying that I live in a small town in the Northeast. And in fact, once I came out, I've been accepted in my village by other villagers. There's also apparently a lesbian couple living in another village in the district. And they've had no problem in terms of their acceptance in their communities, in their local communities. And so this person is also saying that their issue is that they also feel that the representation so much is very metro, cosmopolitan city based, and that they're asking filmmakers and storytellers to look out into the villagers and the more rural areas of India as well to tell those stories. So I thought that was an interesting point.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think we could go on and on and on. Does maybe everyone could wrap up a little bit with their final thoughts of what they would like to see once we come out of this season of doom and gloom. What, just anything's possible, because anything is possible, right? Anything is possible. Let's start with you, Laxmi ji. For your wish list for the next 1 year, when we are cut loose.
Yes, I really wish, one thing, that we all surpass this pandemic time, especially with the whole trans community, trans man, trans woman, kinner, hijras, and all the whole trans community, the small performers. They survived this pandemic. They survived through this. I believe that it will take another 6-7 months more, plus more, I believe, more than 9 months more to take. And I believe that the community is holding it strong, and we all are working, whether it is me and many other organizations, KSF, and many other organizations who has come together with me, to pull through this whole. Well, we never thought we would suffer something like that, and we all are suffering. But one thing is there, that in this suffering also, things will come out which will be beyond imaginations, and platforms are getting created. See, this pandemic has given so much of platform on the virtual media to be created, where people are listening to queer stories, where people are coming together to share their stories. There are now ears which are opening. And I think so the change will come. Change is inevitable and change will happen. And I really wish that we all are, it's immaterial, whether it's Lisa, whether it's Laxmi, whether it's Onir, or whether it is Jim or Arjun, we all are somewhere, somehow affected. But we all have that power to come out of those affection, of what we have been affected with. And we will, of course, create a space for all our communities, to have a dignified, respectable lives.
Beautiful. Arjun, do you want to sum up your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as the queer narrative goes, I'd really like to see queer characters represented, and not in a way where, I do, like Onir and I were on another panel the other day, and this came up as well, that, as far as the male or heterosexual gaze is concerned, and if they are trying to tell queer stories, then to really try and do it with the sensitivity that it deserves. And, and I think, like, really find the queer people to tell queer stories, because honestly, I think that's really what we don't have enough of. Also, I would like to see maybe, like, for a queer character in cinema, for their queerness to not be the only conflict that particular narrative is focusing on. There are many other conflicts, many other emotions, many other problems, many other aspects to their lives, other than just what the system has been beating down on them with. I think I see that as a step in kind of just including it more and more, and normalizing, so to speak, more and more. That's what I just really want to see.
I love that. Amen.
Yeah.
Jim?
Jim, you're on mute.
I know, I unmuted, sorry. What do I want to see change, or how do I want us to all come out of this? Is that basically what it is?
No, well, I mean, even just summing up your thoughts on what we've been
on this
talking
particular?
about. What would you love to see? Or sure, what would you love to see coming out of this in terms of an advancement for the queer community?
For people to have things they can watch and feel either like they're watching someone they can look up to, or they're watching somebody that they feel represents their story, or they feel like they feel comforted with the fact that they're no longer just a fringe element, and that the word normal applies across the board and is not exclusively for some people only, and that in general, just accepting fluidity and openness as opposed to rigidity and hierarchy.
You know, I just wanted to say something really quickly. I'm going to also ask Onir, but, you know, because I think that because all of us, you know, have our own paths that are slightly unconventional. And then, you know, speaking to the actors here, right? Like for us, it's sort of normal to look at life through a certain lens. But I think that what we got to remind ourselves is through this forum right now, and through talking about it, even though maybe sometimes we're like, oh God, another talk, somebody's going to be impacted, because most of the world right now doesn't actually think like this. And somebody needs to hear this. I realize that every time. And I have to tell you that, like, I'm totally into this talk. This is a little bit out of my normal kind of repertoire. But I know, because, you know, someone reaches out and they're like, thank you, I needed to hear that. So I also wanted to tell all of you guys that you're awesome, but also remember that everything you're saying really is having an impact, even like energetically putting it out there. Because like we said, we're living in a world that seems to be, on one hand, moving in the opposite direction of exclusion. And Onir, would you like to like
that, you know, what I would like to talk about is also what you mentioned before about, you know, there is a lot of people from the LGBTQI community, be it in the industry, be it in, you know, corporate world, industries, sports, you know, who have the possibilities of financially, one, supporting, okay, the various things. It could be a workshop, it could be a film, it could be anything. And that's been missing, you know. And two, I would look at, I mean, when we look at Duty Chand, someone like a Duty Chand, the first probably LGBTQI, you know, a sports person who is so successful, out and proud, you know, I just want to tell everyone that, yeah, sexuality is personal. You decide when you want to come out and all that shit. But when you have a platform, you know, and you can make a difference, you can make a huge difference. Today, when you see someone like a Duty Chand who comes from Odisha, does not come from a privileged background, has the strength, has the courage, who has huge fan following, whom people love, you know, then as someone else from a background which is not privileged looks there and finds hope. And I always say that's what always kept me, you know, drives me, that maybe 10 other people, you know, will feel that, okay, he can survive if he's out and open. So I feel it's really, really important to come out with your identity, live your identity, because there is no reason, you know, there is no reason why you should. I mean, people say that, you know, you don't have to wear your sexuality on your sleeves, but the heteronormative world is always wearing it all over, not just sleeves, all over themselves. So why can't we wear it on our sleeves? So that's all. Just.
Yes, sir, indeed. Swati, are you around?
Yes,
Swati.
very much.
Awesome. So we're gonna wrap up. And of course, I want to thank the Keshav Suri Foundation for supporting this and for supporting all of these conversations. They do a lot of great work. I think actually, Laxmi ji, you set down a very interesting project, perhaps for the short term, of like perhaps creating workshops, you know, funding workshops for people in the trans community who want to get in behind the camera, to start creating content, to start understanding how to market content. I'm sure there's like a synchronicity there, maybe also with the Keshav Suri Foundation. I don't know, I'm just putting it out there. But I also want to tell everyone who's watching that you can also support the foundation and donate as well, because again, as we said, I think where you put your money is also a really political act. And so we are talking about representation, and I'm really grateful because I really do understand from messages that I get how empowering it can be. And then I've been a young girl who's been very confused about a lot of things in my life, and hearing people who are that much further down the path and sharing their opinions can make a huge impact. So I mean, I think all of us speak really. I think we all feel very humbled and privileged to be here.
Yeah.
One thing can I add?
Of course, please.
Thank you, Liz. See, what you said is right. And I rather believe that I would, of course, speak to Keshav Suri Foundation. And with my organization, we would come together with a complete, I would, of course, design a complete package of training workshop, and where I would, of course, require, artists, whether it is Jim, whether it is Arjun, or whether it is you, or Onir, of course, and many other people also, which we would, of course, pull on the board to create a space that to have the knowledge to make, things, and people to come into this whole making content and putting it on a platform where it can be showcased with dignity and pride. Thank
Wonderful.
you so much.
Oh, I love that. Fantastic. Let's start a movement right now.
Yes.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Swati.
Thank you. Nice talking to all of you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye. Bye. Good night.
Bye, Onir. Bye.
night.
Bye.
Bye.
See you guys.
Guys, I just want to say formally thank you. I hope you all enjoyed. I enjoyed every minute of the session. And this is the last of the Queering the Pitch series, but we will be coming with more important conversations through Queering Quarantine on our Instagram page. So do follow us. And like Lisa said, please do support us. You can check on the website for more details and begin your journey of inclusion. I also want to highlight that the key learnings from today's session have been the need for more positive stories, for more, especially the queer representation from their eyes, and trans representation. And what we've also sort of discussed and paved a way for ourselves from our previous conversation is to push for equal access for LGBTQ community in healthcare, to forge inclusion in schools. We have a book for that, to stop, to educate children, to help stop gender normative bullying, to educate families and help parents initiate talks of gender, sexuality with their children, to, partner with corporates and build inclusion in corporate sphere. So there are a lot of things that the foundation is doing, and we have a clear roadmap ahead. So do follow us, do support us. And thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you, Laxmi.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Namaskar.